All right. Welcome, everybody, to the Moab City Council meeting. I'm going to call the meeting to order on August 26th at 6:01 p.m. And we first start out with the Pledge of Allegiance, and Beth is going to lead us in the pledge tonight.
The Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right. And we have Shar ready to go with public comments. And so we're ready for you.
First of all, I'm Charlotte Mates. I've lived in Moab, Utah for 30 years now. And first of all, I want to thank the Moab City Council for all of the hard work that you do on behalf of our citizens. I know you don't have an easy job. Most people say they would not want to talk about politics and religion. And there's a lot of elephants in the room. And one of the things that I have a question about, and I'm not sure if I need to get it on an agenda item or if I could just bring it to your attention. I don't run for politics because I don't know why. People tell me I should run for mayor, and I say I don't want anything to do with it. It's too political. And I appreciate what the mayor does. But there's an elephant in our community, and I'm trying not to point any fingers at anyone. But we have citizens that went from paying $400 a month to having their homes relocated or bought by the city and taken away from them at Walnut Lane, who now pay $2,500 for the same home. And I want to resurrect what we started, I believe it was 2 years ago, July 31st and August 1st, that my friend, who's all of her coworkers, live there and work at the motel she works at. And I had just met our new community development director, Michael Black, and called and asked if we could meet and propose a meeting of 2 meetings, 3 languages, 3 flip charts, and find out what the needs of the people were. We were told that sounded reasonable. And the next day, I received a phone call message saying that the city was not ready for it. Then in March, it ended up being the insurance company would no longer insure it. And then a month later, there was a meeting with only the residents, and they weren't asked what their needs were. They were told and offered a buyout. And my time is up, so I'm going to leave it to you to ask you to think about and perhaps put on the agenda. I have that person that went with me who has an idea. I can get her to write it down. I think the use of it, and I would be willing to work on that committee. I've tried at least 10 times in the last 26 years to be on a committee in this community. And I guess my voice is too loud and has not been accepted. So I'm going to leave it at that. And thank you for your time and attention. And I would like to talk about the Walnut Lane issue and how we can make peace with the people that live there who are still continuing to live in our community and pay $2,500 for what they paid $400. Thank you.
Thanks, Shar. Any other comments from the public? Yes, Teresa. Did you? You can fill it out. Yeah, fill it out on the way back.
So I'll be quick. But I wanted to say a couple things about what happened 33 years ago in our community. We are so lucky. 33 years ago in April was the first car show. 33 years in May was the first arts festival in that incarnation. KZMU started 33 years ago. And tonight I'm here about the Moab Music Festival started 33 years ago. What's special about 33 years ago? The Moab Music Festival is celebrating the transition of the founders, Michael Barrett and Leslie Tompkins. Festival has gone through a tremendous growth process and has new leadership. And it's a very unusual thing for founders to transition a nonprofit in this way. I am so proud of having the music festival and all these different events in our community create the culture that we have. So I just invite anybody that's listening, if you're going to be able to go to the free reception tomorrow night at Star Hall. Festival is starting. There's many events. Some of them are free, like the old City Park concert on Labor Day. But again, I wanted to thank the city for all their support over these years. And again, anyone who's worked for the festival, volunteered for the festival, been in any way, shape, or form, know Michael and Leslie, stop by the Mark tomorrow night and just say hi. Thanks.
I'll be there.
What time?
It's 5:30.
Thank you.
5:30. You bet. It's 5:30 to 7, and then the conference at Star Hall at 7.
Great.
Excellent.
I'll see you then.
See you there.
Thanks, Teresa. Anybody else? Comments? All right. Moving on then, we're gonna go to our department update, and we didn't have anything on the agenda because the skies are so dark. We thought it might be good for Lex to come and just give you guys a real quick update on the preparation for potential flash floods in the next couple of days, because we are anticipating rain. So Lex, if you wouldn't mind just letting everybody know what's going on.
Today we met with our first emergency operation planning committee that we put together with the new emergency manager from the county to try to get ahead of planning for specific storms, et cetera. We obviously already have plans in the city. We've had them for several years. So we've kind of started rolling those out and reminding people of their assignments. Current threat is through midnight right now for potential flooding in lower areas. Although Moab, it seems for now, is going to be missed on either side, according to the latest that I've seen. But alerts will come out if you follow the Facebook page for the police department, the emergency managers page with Grand County, or the city's Facebook page. But for now, alerts through midnight is all we have
For today.
for today. Yep. Tomorrow we'll start anew, and if more things happen, we'll post them.
Okay. Thanks, Lex.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you. All right. Now we're going to move on to our consent agenda. We have 4 items. One is the Suicide Prevention and Awareness Proclamation, which I'm going to read. I'm going to have the gals come up and talk to us a little bit about that and some of the events they have. We also have a Recovery Day proclamation. I'm not going to read that. That celebration is on the 4th of September at Swanee Park at 6 o'clock. I think it starts at 4. I'll read that proclamation to the group there at the park on that day. We also have the approval of the minutes from our last meeting, which was July 22nd, 2025, and the approval of the bills against the city of Moab in the amount of $2,654,733.72. But before I ask for a motion, I'd like for you all to come up and tell us about some of the events that you've got going on, and then I'll read the proclamation and share it with you. Okay? Thank you.
I've got pens and bracelets for everybody. We're not writing you or anything. No. That would be above and beyond. Good evening, council. Thank you so much for giving us a few minutes to talk about
September being Suicide Prevention and Awareness Month, and this proclamation that means so much to the families living in the Moab community that have lost somebody to suicide. For too long, talking about suicide and mental health has been stigmatized and is often swept under the rug, and there's a lot of taboos and barriers and gap to services in getting people the help that they need. And so by taking this opportunity to proclaim September Suicide and Awareness Month, it's actually helping us to reduce that stigma and to normalize talking about our mental health much the way that we do about our physical health. Some of the things that we have coming up in the Moab community begin on September the 9th. We are hosting a free community QPR, question, persuade, refer. Thank you. It is a 2-hour presentation where you will learn the common warning signs associated with somebody in a suicidal crisis, how to question somebody safely about their suicidal intent, how to persuade them to live and to get help, and then who and when to refer them to within resources within the local area, statewide, and nationwide. And then our next event is taking place on Wednesday, September 10th, which is World Suicide Prevention Day. We will be hosting a candlelight vigil that is again free to the community to come out. It's a reverent celebration of remembering the lives that we have lost to suicide and celebrating the light that they leave behind instead of focusing so much on how they've left this world. Four Corners Community Behavioral Health will be providing the battery operated candles as to make sure that there's no fires, right? We're still dry, even though you're preparing for flash floods, we're still pretty dry. So, and then in October, for the first time in Moab, you all should be very, very proud. We are hosting our first annual Out of Darkness Hope Walk that will be taking place at Sweeney Park on October. The candlelight vigil is at Swanee Park. Excuse me. The walk, thank you, Beth, is taking place at Grand County High School. It is free to come and attend. The walk committee with the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention Utah Chapter Moab Committee has done an excellent job of making sure that they are including different partners within our area to provide resources and vendoring. Representative Logan Monson has agreed to come and talk to the attendees. And so we would encourage all of you to come and just show your support for this inaugural event in Moab. One last comment that I'll make before I let these ladies introduce themselves, because hi, I'm Amanda McIntosh. I'm the Suicide Prevention Liaison with Four Corners Community Behavioral Health. So sorry, apologies, like I haven't done this before. But you know, some of the great things that are happening in Moab, the progression of talking about mental health and suicide prevention really has been great and grand. We have worked very closely with Chief Bell and his officers, and then the Sheriff's Department. We have provided QPR training for them on top of their normal CIT training. We have been able to give QPR with the Grand Senior Center. We have also given it to Potash, their employees up there. And in September, we will be giving it to Synergy employees. So it is expanding and growing, and we couldn't be more excited to have this be a topic of conversation and no longer being kept in the dark and only brought to the light. Introduce yourself, please.
My name is Michaela Meeks, and I work at Four Corners as the Mobile Crisis Outreach Team Case Manager.
Very good.
And yeah.
Did you have? No. My name is Elizabeth Wright, Beth Wright, and I work at Four Corners. I'm the Grand County Prevention Specialist, and I also facilitate the Great Coalition, which is our local CTC prevention coalition. So I know there's been a couple of other iterations of it, but yeah.
Any questions that you have that we can answer? Because otherwise I could talk all night, but I wouldn't do that to you. Honestly, I'll allow you a space to talk, I guess.
Well, thank you for all the work you do. It's very important.
Thank
And I'm glad that Grand County is supporting you, and the Moab City always has.
Yes.
So thanks for all your work. It's tough work. It's hard work at times, I'm sure. but very, very important and very meaningful. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So with that, I'm going to read the proclamation. Is everybody ready?
Great.
All right. So this is a proclamation by the mayor and the city council of Moab City proclaiming September 2025 to be Suicide Prevention and Awareness Month. Whereas the state of Utah has consistently been in the top 10 states for suicide deaths since 2012, currently the 7th in the nation versus 2024 reporting, and whereas Carbon, Emery, Grand counties often lead the state of Utah in suicide deaths per capita. And whereas people who lose a loved one to suicide are at 30% higher risk of ending their lives to suicide as a learned coping mechanism and learned behaviors. And whereas the risk of suicide can be reduced through awareness, training, proper educational resources, and treatment. And whereas, according to the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention statistics, suicide is the second leading cause of death among Utahns ages 15 to 24, the second leading cause of death among ages 25 to 34, the second for ages 34 to 45, the fourth highest death rate among ages 45 to 55, and fourth for ages 55 to 64, and 18th for 65 and older. There's been no change since 2024. Whereas suicide affects everyone, suicide is everyone's business, and suicide is one of the most preventable deaths that can be avoided by 1, learning the warning signs of depression and suicidal ideation, 2, knowing how and when to ask about one's suicidal thoughts, 3, being aware of life-saving measures, 4, familiarizing ourselves with the resources available locally, such as Four Corners Community Behavioral Health, statewide, such as Live On Utah, and national-wide, such as calling or texting 988, the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. Now, therefore, I, Moab City Mayor Joette Langanese, on the 26th day of August 2025, do hereby proclaim September 2025 to be Suicide Prevention and Awareness Month in Moab City, and encouraging all residents of Moab City to recognize how serious suicide is, the steps that each of us can take to protect those around us from this preventable tragedy, and one with devastation, generational, and community-wide effects.
Thank you so much. Would it be too much to ask for just a really quick picture? Is that okay?
Sure. Why don't we, before we do that, let's vote on this so
Oh,
that I can
yes.
give it to them.
Okay.
And so I would like to have a motion for the consent agenda approving the Suicide Prevention and Awareness Proclamation, the Recovery Day Proclamation, the minutes from July 22nd regular meeting, 2025, and the approval of against the bills of the city of Moab.
I can take this one. I make a motion to approve the consent agenda, including the Suicide Prevention and Awareness Month proclamation, the Recovery Day proclamation, the approval of minutes from the July 22nd, 2025 regular meeting, and the approval of bills against the city of Moab in the amount of $2,654,731.72.
Motion by Colin, second.
I'll second.
Second by Tani. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 4-1, and I voted, and I don't even get to vote, but anyway, thank you guys.
Where would you like us?
Maybe if we could just congregate right here in the middle, that would be
course,
fine.
yeah.
Yes, thank you so much. There we go. Now stand up. Okay, fine. Here. All right. Oh, yes. Joe, will you take the tag over there, please? The what? Oh. Thank you.
Thank you, Summer.
There you go.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your work.
Thanks,
Yeah.
sorry. I'm sorry. No, thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thanks. Thank you so much.
I can't believe it.
Oh, sorry.
All right, thank you, Amanda.
High school, thank you.
Yes, yes. We'll announce it again, you guys, before the next meeting before the event. That's it. That's the Women's Festival. Okay. That was very good. Thanks for everybody's support on that. Really appreciate it. Next, we have something really exciting to talk about, which is great news. And this is our general business item 5.1 quarterly financial update by Michael. You guys all got a updated version of the financials. That actually the one that you got in the packet, we didn't get those numbers until Friday afternoon. So so Michael wanted to get that out to you. The one you got today has all the data in the financial report. So the one you got in your packet doesn't include all the final numbers through June. So I wanted to make sure you got that so that you had a really clear picture of what the financials are.
Thank you. So the difference between the one you received on Monday and the one you received today is the revenues have been updated. And those are the taxes that I talked about. There still will be some changes, and it's still unofficial until the audit's finished, but this is getting pretty close to what the final budget is. Like I mentioned, and I'll go over in a second, there still are some transfers that need to take place, some transfers in, which is revenue, and some transfers out, which would be expenses. The big transfers are to CIP, which is the entirety of the property tax. And the other one is the transfer to the Parks and Recreation Fund. Those are two pretty big transfers. The Parks and Recreation Fund is a general fund department, or the Parks and Recreation Department is a general fund department. But several years ago, or a few years ago, it was split out from the general fund and its own fund was created, even though it's still funded by general fund. So I just want to go through a few key points on this. The budget's looking really good for the end of the year. Generally speaking, revenues are up, expenditures are down, is where we want to see them. Things are looking very good. I circled the revenue, which is just the tax portion of the revenue, which is standing at $17,210,000. That does include property tax, and that's a 2%, 1.8% increase from what was budgeted. So based on what was budgeted, we collected about $300,000 more than what was budgeted for all of those when thinking about all of those taxes. If you take out the property tax and you only count the taxes that have been ongoing for a while, we're basically flat as compared to last year. We still are about $275,000 above what was budgeted for this year, but as compared to last year, we're basically flat. We're about within 0.3% of basically 1/3% from last year's budget. So really flat, or last year's actuals, sorry. So actuals to actuals. Some of the things that need to be transferred in, as you can see, or transferred out, or transferred in, sorry, are some of the enterprise funds sending money into the general fund for services performed for those funds. I'm going to go down. I'm just going to touch on each department really quick. So if we look at the administrative department, now we're talking about expenses. Administrative department, which includes general government, administrative, finance, treasurer, recorder's office, legal, all of those things, and the city council. We came in at 95.25% of budget, which is a 5.75% decrease from what was budgeted, or we came in less than under what was budgeted. We'll just leave it at that. The next thing I want to show you is the community development department. Same thing there. They're almost 10% under. And then if you look at total general government, which includes community development and administration, it's at 93.45%. Most of these expenses will not change. These are the ones that will pretty much stay the same. There might be some as we go through the audit where auditors say, well, this should have been charged here, that should have been charged there, and they'll move those things around, but not so much that it would change percentages that greatly. Just touching on a couple more, public safety was under as well for the year, coming in about 5% under what was budgeted again. And then last thing I wanted to show you is Public Works Department. And that was, they came in over 10% under what was budgeted. So this is important because every year there's a carry forward, and the budget we're in now is no different. There's a carry forward that we were hoping for, that we budgeted for going into next year's budget. This just means that carry forward will be bigger than what we had planned for because the savings was more than what we had planned for. So this is a good thing for this coming budget. These are the transfers that need to go out. So if you look, there's two really big ones. There's the transfer to Capital Projects Fund, and then there's the transfer to the Parks and Recreation Fund, or the Recreation Fund. So those two together are over $5 million. If you put them together, it's $3.2 million for capital projects. And that's everything that comes in from property tax, minus just a little bit that goes to the engineering department for some project management they do on capital projects. And then the other amount, Recreation Fund, is the majority of what funds the Recreation Department. They do bring in their own revenue as well, but the majority still comes from the general fund. So we are down basically based on what the number I circled there is what we still need to come up with to meet the budget, which is $3.221 million. Or that's the number we still have. So the difference between 3.221 and the 5.350 is the amount of savings that we're clocking right now for the general fund. So a little bit over $1 million. So that's I'm not going to go through all of the other funds. All the other funds look really good. The audit is getting kicked off right now. We will be working with the auditor coming up here pretty soon, get that thing done and complete and presented to you in the fall this year. And we're looking forward to going through that process. Any questions on the financial update?
One question I have is, how much did we end up transferring out to balance the budget for 24, 25?
Well, it hasn't happened yet, but the budgeted amount that's in the budget today is $2 million. So you would subtract, and that's the carry forward and all that kind of stuff. So you would subtract the $1,150,000 from that, and that's what would need to be transferred. So it's about $1,150,000 less than what was planned on.
And then, Michael, all the these transfers in the big differences we're seeing from 24 to 25, that's a function of probably Cane Creek or the big projects we've had, big infrastructure.
And Walnut Lane.
And Walnut Lane.
Yep.
The difference is, sorry, say that again.
The transfers in the overhead from the different enterprise funds, is that a function of
Well,
big projects?
no, generally, so the big projects would go to the CIP.
Okay.
This is overhead, basically paying for overhead for administrative services, things like that. So there are services that are provided to the enterprise funds through administration, like legal, HR, payroll, all those types of things that go support the enterprise fund that they pay for through transfers back to the general fund.
Got it.
So that's what those pay for.
And no significance of why we're just seeing such a big difference from 24 to 25.
Oh, let me take a look at that really quick. It might be because the transfers just weren't made in 24, 25 because they weren't needed. according to,
Do it though this year. Seems to me that you changed
I-
how we transferred.
well, I made it so that it happens every year now. There were years when it didn't happen because the general fund had too much money in it. So the general fund was get too rich. And so we were getting dinged on our audit. So there was no reason to take money from the enterprise fund.
Got it.
But the reality of the general fund balance was that it was also covering a bunch of unbudgeted expenses that we had. So we had liabilities that weren't being counted against the general fund. And so what we did was this year we split up the general fund a little bit. We transferred over $1 million to the RAP tax fund. So $1 million that was sitting in the fund balance for general fund belonged to RAP tax. There's another amount that is unfunded liability for retirement and vacation payout, buyout, things like that, that needs to be taken out of there as well. So the point I'm trying to make though is that the reason why those transfers didn't happen in the past is because there was so much money in there. Now what we're doing is we are actually taking the money out that's not supposed to be in there or belongs somewhere else and putting it where it belongs. So it doesn't look like we have too much money in the general fund when we actually don't.
That was a good explanation. Thank you.
Yeah.
So like things like First East and uranium that are being paid for with like property tax funds.
Right.
Now is that the majority of that, has that been paid in last year or is that just in a capital fund?
It's in a capital fund and it just rolls over year to year.
Okay.
So if we did make some payments in the last year, it would have come out of last year, but then it just rolls forward until the project is finished.
Okay.
And it's the same funds.
Right. Okay.
I've got a couple. So related to a conversation we're about to have next, noticed that we did go over budget by about 23,000 on streetlights. Wondering how kind of like the work that we did on, well, I guess, a reminder as we're about to head into this next conversation, and we can save this for that. But we have been working on and paying for streetlights. Wondering how last year's budget ties into this one.
I thought we had 150 for streetlights.
We do. It's in CIP. So that's correct, right? So I'd have to look into which line item you're talking about. If you can just give me the number really quick.
Yeah, it's under streets, 44052
Sorry it's taking so long, but I might as well just
Okay.
address this right now. 40542. Yeah, why don't you, is that some charges for some repairs or?
Did take over, we installed some new streetlights and we took over some streetlights, I believe, so that's probably the charge for the new streetlights, probably with the sports parking, and then also on King Creek that we now, their offers.
So what it looks like to me is this was just under budgeted. It was budgeted at $65,000 when the year before the actual expense was $78,000. And then you add the new lights to it, service for the new lights. And that's how we get up to $88,000. It wasn't for actual installation of any new lights. It's for the maintenance going forward for those lights that were installed as part of a capital project.
But I'd ask that question to Lexi like this week, and it sounded like
What you're
The
gonna be
street-
talking about next.
the street light had come out of Dark Sky Capital.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, I guess trying to understand what is like general fund maintenance work versus what is capital projects.
Right. And we definitely tried to separate all capital projects from the operations budget this year. That was one of our big focuses. And this would just be the maintenance for those lights.
Okay, great. Another one just down the page on facilities. I mean, a big reason why Public Works is so under budget is because the building upgrades 443526 is under by 430,000. And I know in kind of going to Public Works events and kind of talking to staff, I know that started a little later Can you remind us if that's continuing in or kind of what?
Yeah, so that would be the, I believe that would be the building, this building and other buildings that are having roofs replaced
Okay.
and that are being paid for through grant funds. Getting the sorry, not grant funds, insurance proceeds. So those were just moved forward, and anything that wasn't spent last year is going to get spent this year, and it happens to be about $430,000. So that's the price of the contract that we have, is right around that price. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's somewhere in that range anyways. I think we're paying a little bit more, within, I think, $20,000 of what the actual payout was from the insurance company.
Thanks. And then my final one is first a kind of a comment. I think looking at the rec budget, I was excited to see that rec programs, MRAC, Mark, all of that, like people are using it, people are paying those fees. So wanted to give a shout out to staff on really pushing that. Even especially within MRAC and some of the challenges they've had, it's really nice to see that the MRAC is operating really well. And then my final kind of uncomfortable one, I noticed that across a lot of departments, salary budgets were over, ranging from a little bit to kind of, a lot.
Yeah, and I think there could be, there's a few explanations for that. One, if you look at the police budget, the police have generally never been totally staffed in the past. They are now. So the city has some programs, just like everybody does, with things like vacation buyback and with holidays. And what this says to me is that our police officers most likely ended up working most of the holidays. People, for whatever reason, our officers worked holidays and they end up getting paid double pay as a result of that. And so what happens is, at the end of the year, that everybody gets paid out at the same time for all the vacation days that they have. I was aware that this could potentially be an issue late on towards the end of the year, where most of the police officers, I think, had almost all 13 days of their vacations. And that's an indication of, even being well staffed, when we have holidays, our town is packed. It is full of people, and our officers still have to come into work and still have to be out there on the streets. And then for whatever reason, they didn't have the opportunity to take that vacation time another time. And so it's from the buyout is what it's from.
Okay, great. And I'm assuming a lot of the others are from salary survey results.
No, I wouldn't say that. Salary survey results were minor this year compared to most years. And this was the last year we were doing it. I think the longevity, there were some other things as well, but it's not just the police department that gets the holiday buyback. And again, this is across the board. Every city, state does this same thing. If you don't use a holiday, you can sell it back to the agency. There was a lot of that. So we need to do an evaluation this year on how many people did that. And then one of the other things that I'm doing, and I'm not getting on anybody who used this year, but really working with the supervisors to ensure that that we don't have people working on holidays unless they absolutely have to. The chief, if he says they have to work on the holidays, that's what's going to happen. But in City Hall, there's not a lot of reasons why people need to work on the holidays. Public Works, there might be, and some of the other ones, but we want people to take their time off, get the time off that they need so they can be rejuvenated and do a good job for our citizens. So we want to make sure that we don't have people working on holidays that we don't have to, and we could potentially cut back a little bit there. And then just really encouraging people to take that time other times. But if they don't have a chance to, at the end of the year, they get to cash that in. And it's kind of a moving target. So we'll do an evaluation this year and see if there's any changes we need to make for the upcoming year.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions? All right. We will get the final budget sometime in September, October, after the audit. just.
Yeah. After the audit, I'll just submit the final, like I said, expenses shouldn't be much different than what you're seeing now. We'll see those transfers come out, and then you'll see what the actual fund balance transfer in is, which I said, of course, is going to be less than what we had planned on. So,
All right, so we'll have another quarter report probably December.
yeah, it'll be a quick one.
Yeah. All right. It'll be interesting to see though how July panned out with the movie here and how the fall's panning out in terms of visitation, because I know that's been a big concern with the community. So I'm curious to see how things play out this fall.
Me too.
Mhm.
It's always fun. It's like Christmas every 22nd day of the month to see what the
What's the
what the
sales?
revenues are. Yeah. So
All right, thanks, Michael. Next item, 5.2, Alexi, consideration of an agreement to convert Rocky Mountain Power owned streetlights to LED, dark sky, night sky lighting. Anyway, we've got some options to talk about.
Yeah, we do. All right. So we're gonna look at replacing the Rocky Mountain Power owned lights that are within the city. And as we've covered, this is something that was a part of this year's budget. Work on this. Okay. The reason we're doing this, if we step back to the general plan, it's in there that we're going to pursue being a dark sky community. We achieved that last year. We've been working on becoming compliant with our own outdoor lighting code. We have already replaced the lighting part of the luminaire within the decorative streetlights that were owned by the city. That was, again, last fall, winter. And now we're focusing on the Rocky Mountain Power owned streetlights. A lot of these you've seen around town look like they're called Cobra heads. That's the majority of these lights, and most of them are owned by Rocky Mountain Power, and they also maintain these. Okay, so before I get into the specific options, I'm going to share some terms. Lumens are brightness, watts are the power used. Kelvin is the color of the light, which we have in our code at being 3000 Kelvin or less. And the color rendering index is about how accurate or the fidelity of the color that would be reflected back to you. We have a number of levels that are correlated to the lumens or the brightness of the lights that will be within our replacements. And in addition to the Cobra heads, we also have a few post tops. So again, these are going to be 3000 Kelvin. This is the lowest color temperature that Rocky Mountain Power owns and is the maximum that's allowed by our code. And then we would be replacing the post tops, which are, I think, in one specific neighborhood, and then the Cobra heads throughout the rest of town. We have a few different options with these, including a comfort lens that is available to diffuse the light. It's available, it's about $6 per fixture. And then we also have shields that are available for one side of the light, and they cost something closer to $85 per fixture. That includes labor. Okay, so down here at the bottom, I have some color rendering information. This I included mainly because what we have now will be 3000K. What we had before was 3000K and about 70 on a color rendering index. What we had before was about 25 on a color rendering index. So what I have on the right is what colors are used to measure something like this. And then we have a couple examples of what those lights would look like at different color rendering indices. And that would show, we would have better color, like people would be able to tell the difference between colors on cars, or be able to recognize things a little bit better. The colors get muddier as you get to the lower end of the color rendering. So that would be one advantage. Okay, and then one more thing, this is not something that would be in the city budget or something that the city would buy, but it is something that could happen if we have Rocky Mountain Power down doing a lot of these replacements. They're offering an area light incentive, like for people who have barn lights or other things on their properties. A lot of this would be commercial, but some residential areas might have them. This would be if somebody owned one of these and they wanted to come into compliance with city code at the same time as the city, they're offering a discount because they can do a bulk order and they will also already have their work crews down here to be replacing lights. So this is something that we can work with people who have barn lights to make sure they know that they have an opportunity to become code compliant along with the city at a discounted price.
Alexa, we probably want to let the county know about this because most of the barn lights that are problematic are out in the valley.
Yeah, and I did connect Rocky Mountain Power with the county because they also want to do the county streetlights at the same time, as long as they have a crew in the area. You know, it's up to the county, but that would be an opportunity for all of the lights around here to become compliant with both county code and city code.
What is that last bullet point?
Yeah, Rocky Mountain Power. So any lights that don't have a responsible party right now, as in there is a light there, but nobody is paying for it. Like it's on nobody's account. While they're coming through, they're also going to remove lights that don't have anybody paying for them or nobody has them assigned on their bill. So if somebody was aware that there was a light that was not on their bill that they wanted to continue to exist, it would be a good time to talk to Rocky Mountain Power about it. I think part of this came along with when we put together estimates for how much it would cost us as a city to replace lights. When they're doing that inventory, there were lights that were not ours. And if nobody was assigned to them, it's a convenient time to clean that up.
Are those street lights mostly, or are they?
Yeah, they would be street lights or area lights.
So on the street lights, could we get a list of all those that are unassigned, see if we want to take credit? We want to adopt any of them?
That's a good idea.
We can. They did also ask about some, like in the process of putting the inventory together. So I could see if there were any, you know, that were still out there that they hadn't asked us about. But they did run some things by us to make sure that we had the opportunity to I guess, fund that light if we wanted to. And then we also did choose to have them take on a couple others that were area lights on our property that were currently city maintained. And in addition to that, we've found out that UDOT is now maintaining the lights on the stoplights or the semaphores. So those lights were removed from these estimates and UDOT will start doing those intersection lights that are attached to the stoplights.
That's like part of the process. Anyways, we don't want to take carte blanche, but if there's some that are useful, we maybe don't want to see them go.
Are there any lights that we're considering removing? You know, like since we've done some lighting projects, you know, like dispersed parking and stuff like that, is there any street lights that we would consider taking out or anything, or are we not?
Not currently. I do believe that, as was mentioned in the budget earlier, there were some that the city bought and have chosen to operate as a part of recent projects, but I did not intentionally take out any lights that we were currently paying for. Okay, I'm going to make a note to verify that we don't have any that we want to take over that are out there. Okay. All right, so getting into more specifics about where or what kinds of lights we're planning and what locations. The streets are classified by different levels of traffic and uses. So we have local streets, which are mostly neighborhood streets, collectors moving up in use, and then minor arterial, principal arterial. And the lighting levels are attached to those different street classifications. So local level streets start at 1, moving up to 2 for collectors, 4 for minor arterial, 5 for principal arterial. The reason they are set at these levels is mainly because almost all the feedback I get from neighborhoods is that they want less light. And almost all the feedback I get on busy streets is that people want more light. In addition to that, Rocky Mountain Power will be upping the lights like by 1 level at intersections and crosswalk for safety. So If it's a level 1 in a local area, but there's a crosswalk, then it would be a level 2 to provide a little more light in that area. We don't want to up it too much because there's some difficulty switching between low light and higher levels of light that can make you a little blinded when you re-enter low light. So it's good also, especially in like sparsely lit areas like we have in some of the neighborhoods, to not overlight an area because you could enter a position where you might have difficulty switching back and forth between high levels and low levels of lighting. Shields are available, as we discussed before, because shields are only available on one side of the light, as in it can be a street side or a house side, or they can be a left side or a right side. We don't necessarily know where people would want the shields, and not everybody would necessarily want them. So the recommendation is to wait on shields, and then maybe in January or so, these would be installed in November, somewhere around November, if we decided to move forward with this. Then somewhere in January, we could open up a period where people could request a shield, tell us where they want the shield, like which side of the light, and then we could put all of those in together and have them installed at the same time. All right, so we have two options that were in the agenda materials. The first one is a standard lens. This is just a regular clear lens. The cost is $89,060.50 with an annual savings of a little over $28,000. The return on investment is 3.14 years. After that savings would just be going into the city budget. So the payback on this is pretty good for an LED lighting project. And then we also have a second option, which is very similar, and it includes what they're calling a comfort lens, and it diffuses the light a bit and reduces glare. This is something that would be a possibility to try to make the switch from the 3000 to the 3000K, the slightly like bluer color when we're used to maybe an oranger color, more comfortable, and also reduce glare from the side as people are approaching them. They are both dark sky compliant. They both meet city code. It's just a matter of preference. The annual savings is the same, but it costs about $1,500 total more, which puts out the return on investment to 3.19 years instead of 3.14. So those are the two options. I wanted to put them both out there for your consideration. We can go with either of these preferences or none of the above. Let me know if you have any questions.
So first question, do you have like a visual to see what a standard versus comfort light looks like?
I don't. I did talk to Rocky Mountain Power about it, and I think it wasn't showing up very well. They did have an example they were going to go out and look at and try to compare them for us, but it wasn't something that was easily shareable in a photo. They did offer to send us a whole fixture if we're interested.
Was this part of the ones that we had put up? Were any of these part of the samples that we had around town?
They are.
Was one of them the comfort, one of them the?
Oh, the comfort lens was not. Comfort lens is a new option. So if we had it installed a few years ago, it wouldn't have been available. So none of our sample lights are a comfort lens. And it just recently came out. It was new, and they thought that it might be a good fit for Moab because one of the ongoing conversations with us was that our residents are sensitive to light color and glare, and we receive feedback when we replace old style lights with new style lights. So they wanted it to be available to us because they thought it might help with the adjustment period.
Right, because remember, these lights are going to be brighter than what we have.
And they're not necessarily higher lumen, they just feel brighter. It's when people go to these like higher color rendering and cooler color, the 3000K, the lights will feel brighter than they were, even though the lumens will not be increasing.
Center Street's a pretty good example of that, right? If you look down Center Street at night, it looks pretty bright.
Mm-hmm.
But those are night sky compliant. Right?
Yeah, it will be more night sky compliant. But at the same time, what that's telling us is the color is right and it's all facing down, not up. It can still be or feel brighter.
Which I think is, for some of us, it's a bummer, but for some people, it might be better, because a lot of people feel like night sky light makes everything dark and we're not safe.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a lot of the feedback we get.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just hard. I mean, we're talking about $1,500, but it is tough to make a decision.
I agree.
Okay.
Just based on that it's not something that we can easily sample or doesn't photograph well, which I mean, I was looking at some of our comparisons of before and afters from downtown, right? And a lot of photographs and things of this is like, you either get this burst of light or you don't, right? Which is that side glare, but it's really hard to tell a whole lot about the light at all. But essentially it's going to be like a frosted lens, and it'll diffuse the light a little bit.
But you can see in those photos the difference. It's not the color of the ground, but it's how much more light is on the ground than
Yeah.
the sky.
Right.
Yeah. And I actually think downtown, this is something that came up in a presentation I was doing about dark skies, and the people who were participating were advocates of dark skies, and they were a little critical of these photos because they're like, but it actually looks brighter. I was like, but it's all down.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think people forget the idea of night sky lighting is to protect the dark skies above.
Yeah.
You know, and good dark sky lighting keeps the light down where we want it and focus where we want it.
Mhm.
So I think that's confusing to some people because they want it to be black, dark.
Yeah. And when they measured the foot candles of these two, it was actually brighter afterwards. We did end up with more light on Main Street than we had before.
Another question about installation of shields.
Mhm.
Since that's on a request basis, would the city pay for shields, or is that like driven by customers?
It could be done either way. Because we have more budgeted than this actually costs, it would be possible for us to just put them all in together. And I did do some quick calculations on what that would be. It would be about, if we only did local areas, which would be the level ones, if we did it up front, and again, this is like back of the napkin, it's not an official quote from Rocky Mountain Power, about 21,000 to do them on all of the fixtures. Again, we would be guessing about where they're needed. We'd be like, well, they're all house side or they're all street side. If we did it the other way, the crew time is more expensive, but I anticipate not every single person wants a shield. That some people might like having that light or not need it. So if 1/3 of the people requested shields, even with the higher crew time, then it might come out to something more like 12,000. So the question is whether we pay for it or not. There's enough money in the budget that we could, but it is also a decision that the city can make about whether that's something that we would cover or not.
And that may be when we find out how many people want them and need them to decide how we want to do it.
And I'm sorry if you said this, but is the city able to install those?
The city would not install them. What we would do is we would submit the list to Rocky Mountain Power. We'd have pole numbers, locations, and then they would schedule it and their crew would do them all.
What's the possibility of doing the new light, the comfort ones, just for level 1 for the neighborhoods and everything else not?
Yeah, we could do that.
That's interesting, yeah.
And that would probably save us, you know.
It's only $1,500.
I know.
And I kind of wonder, like, you know, like Lexi's saying, like, with the comfort ones, it helps with the transition, you know, walking into the light, you know, and stuff, which I think is a good, you know, safety, you know, consideration for our residents, you know. So I don't know. To me, I think that I would go for the comfort for that reason.
It's like so hard for me to know that like there's part of me that wants to ask to compare, because I remember what it's like, and I don't think the standard is like a big deal. I like the idea of doing it in neighborhoods, so I don't know what it's splitting hairs, but
We're not losing light with the comfort.
You do lose about
Lose light.
50 lumens, I want to say,
50.
about 50 lumens.
Okay.
So there is some light that would be like lost in putting like a fuzzy lens on there, like a frosted lens, I guess.
So in one of the conversations we had, that we were thinking of recommending all the comfort lens because it could cut down potentially on the number of people who may want shields
Mhm.
going forward.
Mm.
So kind of a little ounce of prevention, I think, and
We
Thanks.
had, oh, go ahead.
go- no.
I was going to say we had discussed whether or not we wanted by default to install shields, and we're not recommending it for the reasons we've discussed. It would be hard to know who wants it and where they want it. And this is that potential like partial measure to make it more comfortable for people.
Okay, I'm gonna throw this out there. I move to approve the streetlight agreement with Rocky Mountain Power for LED conversion in the amount of $90,578.50, which is the comfort lens, and authorize the mayor to sign it.
I can second that, Jason.
All right, we have a motion by Jason, second by Colin. Jason, discussion.
Nope. You did.
I think in addition to everything that was said, it seems like for $1,500 that, maybe having a little added, for lack of a better word, comfort with our lighting and, losing 50 lumens, but we do have, as we're seeing in those photos of Main Street, a better usage of the light that we're emitting. I feel like that's a good way to go.
Anybody else?
It's not even the money for me because I'm looking between the two bids. If we did, I think mostly I'm thinking about like slightly more dim lights. I think it's like important to have, like, I don't think we need fuzzy lights on 400 East, 500 West. Like, I think having slightly more, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's hard to
So
gauge.
what the mayor was saying there, so this is the original quote.
Right.
And this is the other one. So all the difference is in those level 1s and 2s. So that's the
Right.
local streets and the intersection crosswalks in those local areas, primarily. So it won't necessarily be on, go back to the map, sorry.
Right.
It won't necessarily be on like 400 East, which is a minor arterial.
And Caitlin, can I just add something to your comment? We're also, when we're talking about that 50 lumens, I think it's also, with the level 4 and 5, when we're talking about 12,000 lumen lights, it's relatively small, but.
It's all splitting hairs.
Right.
$400.
Okay, Connie, do you have any comment?
No, and but I agree with Colin and Jason. I think that's it's a good use of that little bit of money, and I think it does provide a certain level of comfort and a little more safety as you transition through those intersections.
Okay. All right. We have a motion to approve street lighting agreement with Rocky Mountain Power for LED conversion in the amount of $90,578.50, which will include the comfort lighting. Motion made by Jason, seconded by Colin. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Do I need to do
Cause it's
in the budget though.
Oh,
So it's in the budget, so, right? Yep,
just check.
yep, thanks for that. All right, motion passes.
As someone who has a street light in my front yard, I'm really excited about it. I will be requesting a shield.
Okay,
Look for
all
that.
right. Thanks,
Thank you.
Alexi.
Mm-hmm.
Moving on to, Alexi's gonna be talking to you about this also. It's the adoption of Moab, ordinance 25-13, ordinance amending the text of Moab Municipal Code to include additional regulations required for EV readiness in multi-household developments. This went before the planning commission. The planning commission gave it a positive recommendation. Alexis and Johanna are going to explain this to us, and it's another one of those things that's not as difficult as it sounds.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah. EV readiness. I'll start with why we're discussing EV readiness, and then I'll move more into the specifics with an outline of the code, the ordinance is proposed, and I'll end with the actual text. So starting with the timeline for where this has gone and where it is now. March of 2024, we began discussing this with Utah Clean Energy. And then after that, Planning Commission became involved with a discussion in August of 24, March of 25, a couple other workshops and a review from the city attorney in May and July. And then we invited community members with connections to construction, real estate, EVs to provide comments and had a public hearing with the Planning Commission who, as mentioned, forwarded it with a positive recommendation, and it is before City Council this evening. Okay, going on with why we're discussing this. It meets our goals for a healthy community, and the general plan, although it's not a specific action item in there, it does fall with the purpose of promoting the use of alternative transportation that is non-polluting or reduces fossil fuel consumption. We also have a couple of resolutions, 80% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions by 2040 and 100% renewable electricity by 2030 that were passed by City Council in 2017 and 2019. And it's also in the Moab Sustainability Plan for reducing transportation emissions, although specifically doing an EV readiness ordinance isn't in there. Reducing transportation emissions, this is one method to do that is transportation emissions are about 29% of the greenhouse gases that we estimate are in Moab. This is based on an estimate from the county greenhouse gas inventory that we share with them and have been conducting with them. So it's at least a third, it could be more. And a lot of that's coming from vehicles that are running on gasoline and diesel. So EVs reduce emissions and improve air quality, addressing those goals. They emit 1/3 to 1/2 of the emissions from a gas-powered vehicle, and that makes them a good strategy to improve air quality and reduce greenhouse gases. They're also a good complement to a lot of the things that we're doing with active transportation. It's good to have sidewalks and bike lanes and a variety of ways for people to get around, like the Moab Area Transit. But a lot of people are going to drive for a variety of purposes, and having an electric vehicle available to them is a way that they can still use a car and that emissions would be reduced. While we can't change which cars people are choosing, we can give them more options by providing access to infrastructure that would make it more convenient to make those choices. The next reason we would consider this is because of resident choice. It does provide people with options. It's hard to choose to drive an electric vehicle if you don't have access to something to charge it with at home. So Grand County registrations for EVs are still relatively low, but the state of Utah is, and the bordering areas around here, a lot of people are picking up EVs faster than they are in the rest of the country. And they're also picking up in Utah. But EV charging can provide a barrier for some people because 80% of EV charging happens at home, and it's also the least expensive way for most people to charge a vehicle. Fast chargers are really nice if you're on a road trip, but it's not something most EV drivers are going to do on a regular basis, and it is more expensive. And also, a lot of people don't own their housing in Moab and therefore have less control over whether or not they can charge at home. So EV prices, I wanted to do some trends here. So we've got residents making choices and having choices about driving, but also EVs can save money over the life of the car. So the top two on here, the blue, like darker blue and red, are both electric vehicles. This is just a sample of like subcompact SUVs. So over the life of a car, these vehicles right now tend to be a little more expensive, but they've been narrowing in initial price. And over the life of the car, an EV can save people money because of reductions in the amount of fuel that they're buying. So having EV readiness allows people to pick whatever car meets their needs. So I wanted to step back and talk a little bit about the specifics of what EV readiness means in this context. In this case, because it's EV readiness, it doesn't mean any EV chargers would actually be installed. What it's doing is sticking conduit in the ground and having electrical capacity to be able to put in an EV charger if somebody decided to later. So EV capable is the conduit and the electrical panel capacity, and then EV ready is moving up to what effectively is a 240-volt outlet where you could plug in something. Some people might use it for a welder, but you can also use it for an EV charger. And if somebody had a cord set with their vehicle, they also might be able to actually charge from EV ready without the EV installed. So the last thing on the reason why this makes sense to do upfront is that the least expensive time to install EV readiness or conduit is when you're constructing something from the beginning, because it reduces the amount of retrofits that need to happen, preventing things like trenching or having to go back in and upgrade an electrical panel. It can save a significant amount of money on the installation, something like 4 to 6 times more to install an EV charger or an EV readiness after the fact. So the least expensive time to do it is in the construction to just be ready for it if somebody would like to have a charger. The Southwestern Energy Efficiency Program estimates that the cost of making something EV ready is about 0.1 to 0.2% of the total building cost. So in this process, we did look at other codes. This is a small sample. The International Energy Efficient Code, IECC, Utah uses this, and we're currently in the 2018 version with amendments. And in the 2024 version, EV readiness starts appearing in the appendix. So their recommendation is in single family, multifamily, and commercial at different rates. Salt Lake City also has an adopted ordinance from 2023, and they did multifamily only. And likewise, we were looking at all of these options and decided that the most targeted EV readiness was probably the best, because people in multifamily households have the least control over their parking. People who are parking at a business, commercial, can decide if they want an EV charger. And then people who are customers also have other options like public chargers that are available, for example, in dispersed parking. We're hopefully that's going to progress. And then the fast chargers that are available in town, also a number of businesses already have them. So people in commercial have options and choices. Single families have more control over their own parking. So it's only in multifamily because it's people with the least choice about where they're parking and whether or not they can charge there. Okay, so I'm going to get to ordinance outline, and then Johanna and I will go through the actual ordinance. We start with the general provisions, which is why this exists and where it applies, which is multi-household dwellings. I'll kind of skip through the definitions, but please ask questions if you have them. And then the general standards. So the proposed code would require multifamily household dwellings to have 10% EV capable. Again, that's conduit and panel capacity, and 10% EV ready, which is going up to effectively an outlet. There's an incentive in there for single and 2 household dwellings, but it is not required. It's just that if somebody wants to put something, like get an electrical permit reviewed, and they also wanted to install something for an EV, then that would be included without charge. Then we go through some general ADA safety maintenance requirements, capacity requirements, and review procedures for exceptions and enforcement. Okay, starting with the intent and purpose, a lot of this we've more or less gone through. I'm going to make this a little bigger. So the intent is essentially to promote clean air and public health by supporting low emission transportation as supported by the general plan, sustainability plan, and adopted resolutions. that this applies where parking is required, and there are exemptions and exceptions that we'll get to at the end. We talked a little bit about the different types of EV readiness, EV capable and EV ready, and then EV installed. Again, if you have questions about definitions as we go, just let me know. Okay, then we get to those requirements that we discussed, 10% EV capable, 10% EV ready for a total of 20%. If someone has less than 10 spots, then they would only need one EV ready space. EV parking would still count towards minimum requirements, and EV ready and EV installed space that exceed the minimum required would still count. So if somebody only wanted to install EV chargers, that would still count towards the 20%. A proportion of it would be ADA compliant. And then we included connections to fire, safety, other codes to make sure people installed it correctly and that they have contact information for maintenance. So people will know who to contact if something's malfunctioning. Okay, getting into the actual requirements, it just outlines all of those things that are in there. The conduit shall be installed, it has to be within 6 feet of the EV capable space, things like that, and then electrical requirements. And then we have it stepped up for EV ready, right? That goes onto the receptacle. And then people have the option for EV installed, even though it's not required. And in here we have that if somebody wants to install a fast charger, it counts towards 3 level 2 chargers. And also if somebody wants to do energy management set up for their EV that is installed, then their electricity requirements go down, because what that lets it do is manage the electricity between multiple chargers. So that's a way to try to make this more affordable and more accessible, and also not necessarily require somebody to oversize the system. Do you want to go through review procedures?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, if there's any questions, or if you just like, run through an example, either way. Okay.
What do you guys want to do?
I got questions, I'll wait till the end.
Okay.
I can wait.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'd love an example.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, an example might be, somebody is coming, they're gonna do a smaller multifamily development. It has 7 units, and they come and it's just the normal site plan application. And then while I'm reviewing during our DRT review process, I note if they have marked their EV spots. If they don't, I make a comment, they'll do it next round. For 7 units, that specific example, they would still, depending on their zone, probably be in that fewer than 10 parking spaces required. So then they would just have to have that one EV ready parking space. And then normally over 7 units would be when they get to the 10%, equaling 20. And then if they are unable to do that, then we would skip to our exception process, which looks really similar to our landscaping exception process. They would fill out my form, and then we would work with them to put that packet together, which includes their justification with not complying, their suggestion on ulterior standards, and then we take it to planning commission and they make that call if we're gonna approve their exception.
Okay, so yeah, I think that covered it really well. Thank you. Sorry for putting you on the spot. And then it would go through sort of standard violation procedures. If somebody constructed something incorrectly or didn't comply with code, it would basically go through what a standard process would be there. So it would be managed much like any other code that we would have adopted in construction or building approvals. All right, from there, I think we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Who wants to start? Colin.
Okay. This one's really near to me. I live in a community of single family homes that actually has a lot of similarities with a multifamily development. One of those is shared parking. And one of the things that we're facing right now in our community is community members wanting to change over to electric vehicles, and the community does not have the capacity or the will to foot the bill to put in this infrastructure. And had it been in there and basically plug and play, greatly reducing the cost of this, we would have 5 more electric vehicles in this community right now. But right now we are absolutely at an impasse, and with no solution ahead. So I would love to see this, and I just want to make a shameless plug for down the road a gray water system. Also.
Okay.
Okay.
But you
But
Electric vehicle that runs on gray water?
no, we'll talk, Jason. I'll explain it all to you. I'll explain it all.
You bring up a good point, because this is for multifamily. And so
It is.
what about developments where they do have shared parking, which is pretty rare,
Yep.
most single families have a garage or a carport. But what if we have new developments that they do have like parking stalls that you use and you don't get a garage or a parking space at your house? How would that fit into this?
Sure. In the level of development with this, and get it in the council, with the consideration of where to place this triggering mechanism, that was a debate within planning commission, multiple workshops, and within the building department, balancing a level of where the improvements in that construction context lie. That is a mix of ownership layers. So our previous platting exercises that the council used to exercise, everything from smaller subdivisions, townhome or condominium exercises. So the multi-household element is 3 dwellings or more. Pretty broad spectrum to trigger into. However, it doesn't factor in. So a planned unit development, for instance, or something else would be considered a multi-household development. So something like a PUD, this would be a consideration.
Okay.
For something that is what we may call the bread and butter standard housing, where there's a broader subdivision, but it is single household or duplexes, 2 household units, would not be a part of this. In that, again, like I think Alexi's explanation was quite correct in that this is, at least for the current threshold, the populations of our community that have the least infrastructural control, or even will, but maybe the lack of ability at a certain point to affect their parking. Single household, 2 household, you want to upgrade your transformer, your individual circuits, that's really just a call to your electrician, not a big deal. So factoring that in, we decided this threshold was, I think, the most effective but least onerous across the board. Is much like landscaping. Where are we striking that balance? The reason I kind of popped up here really quick to answer that question is within that stakeholder engagement, we contacted architects, local electricians, to vet that. We had non-official testimonies come back from that. There were contributions, but nothing significant from architects. Again, from a development process, we're adding one more layer to that development process, and understand that need it to be feeling not to an onerous degree where that's just one more thing we have to do. From at least that perspective, they felt this is reasonable and in line with what, again, which is a good indicator for you guys, litmus test. People are already doing this. So we're just raising the minimum bar that we're already doing what everyone typically is, just ensuring that it's happening. But the contributions from the electrical stakeholder is that the National Electrical Code is already moving this way on a national scale to cover the single household, 2 households. So right now we feel this is a reasonable introduction to this. The national realm, this may become an electrical standard for every dwelling, at least in the adopted NAC areas, Utah probably being one of them. So while this may be coming down the pike later on, our code, at that point when it is adopted nationally, we could look at either repealing or amending to comply with however that works. But I feel it is right now, it still makes sense for us to move ahead. So I'm hoping that's answering kind of a broader question of where are we at with these different developments and why multi-household. Thank you.
And with the single households, because we didn't see any numbers and I know there's some ranges. Does it seem like the waiving of that additional permit fee, would that offset, what we're seeing is whatever you said, I think Alexi said 0.1% of total cost of the electrical. How was that come to where that was going to be the incentive?
Yeah, I think the range of what a single family household could cost to construct is pretty broad. But Barry gave us some idea of where that would fall. And we're talking like hundreds, not thousands of dollars for a single family home, because it's effectively putting a dryer outlet in your garage that could be used for lots of things. So it probably wouldn't cover the entire cost of putting that outlet in.
Okay.
But what we were trying to do is not make it burdensome to just go through that process. And then at the same time, we didn't want to make other people subsidize somebody who wanted to install an EV charger. So that was the balance there with the incentive, was trying to reduce some barriers without creating a subsidy.
Thank you.
So this is basically, you're just, which I like what you're doing is, putting these things in, which could be a dryer, like you said, like a dryer thing, or a welder, or an RV hookup plug, it's basically the same thing.
Right.
Which, yeah, makes sense. So,
Do you have any other questions? While you're at it?
yeah, I'd like to go back to gray water.
Just how they put that in there.
Yeah, we haven't developed an EV running on gray water yet.
It's coming though.
Any vehicle that runs on broccoli. Broccoli, so might as well run diesel with it,
You can't make a generalization like that, Jason. Yeah.
I run.
And from broccoli.
No, I think it's fine. The only concern that I would have is that, and it doesn't sound like it's a huge concern, would be like if there was additional, like it takes a bigger transformer, and you get into some pretty expensive costs with that, and stuff. And that was my only concern, is that like you have this multifamily development and you're running the conduit and you have it, but then it's like, oh no, you got to step up the power box,
Yeah.
and that's my only concern with the whole thing, is like, you have a developer who's like, oh, I just gotta put in twice the size, whatever.
Sure. We were concerned about that too. Like in the case where somebody might trip a transformer upgrade for a neighborhood or something like that. And even for a little while in one of our drafts, we had an exemption for if the cost of doing an upgrade to EV readiness would be X% of the total budget, then you would be exempt. We took that out because the Planning Commission felt like the current process for exceptions was working really well, and that if somebody had an exceptional circumstance, that they could still go through that process and it would go through Planning Commission.
I have a
Go
few.
ahead. Go ahead.
I think talking first about the multi-household versus single family. I mean, when I think about this, I think going back to the shared parking, that question is like, how do people actually like physically share? So like, what's that breakdown? And so when I'm thinking about this, I'm thinking about from a housing perspective. I'm curious how you guys got to the 10 and 10. When I'm thinking about it, I would love to hear your rationale for how you got there, because when I imagine a multi-household developer coming in, if they're installing conduit, they're gonna likely remain the property owner, and so they're just installing conduit basically for no reason. But it's hard for me to imagine that they, in 2 to 5 to 10 years, are gonna go back and access that conduit. So I'm more so thinking like, what I would love to see is a mix of EV ready and EV installed. I think because that means as soon as lease up happens, there's already EV chargers for people to use. I know that Shaylee kind of raised some comments about this at Planning Commission. Obviously, my first reaction is like, this is an additional cost and hoop. In addition to AEH, in addition to landscaping, like it's just the checklist keeps getting longer, even if it is a couple $1,000s per unit. So that is a concern, wondering if you guys contemplated that, especially impacts to deed restricted housing. But yeah, I mean, I'm kind of looking at this and like, I really support this. I think it is the way that we need to go. And just thinking realistically about like multi-household projects to have infrastructure that's installed immediately upon CO, having fewer of those and or figuring out ways to incentivize more of that versus requiring more with just conduit, I think would be something that I would love to see and explore.
Yeah. Yeah, so the total of 20% is sort of a recommended minimum for EV readiness, having 20% of your parking ready for EV parking. And then the way we ended up with 2020 or like 10-10 for a total of 20 EV capable, EV ready was trying not to over require things that people wouldn't need for some time, because some multi-household units might already have somebody who has an EV in them. But in some of them, somebody might move in 5 years and want that charger, and having them install it now might mean that that charger is already obsolete by the time somebody's using it. So that was the thought behind having it have the conduit, the raceway, the wire, getting to the point that somebody could plug and play without actually requiring them to plug in now. Did you have anything?
I did. I connected. We can, if that satisfies it, there were a couple of elements in that question that I think we could pick apart.
I know, I could keep going.
But if you're happy with that answer, I think there's a couple of elements too.
Yeah, I mean, I still kind of stand by, like, I think from my perspective, like an EV vehicle is less accessible and less likely for someone who's renting, or to have a charger is like a market rate amenity. And so I think from either of those perspectives, like having more conduit in a single, like a PUD, single family, like single ownership situation, that makes sense. But I'm really struggling with more like thinking about like rental projects with that.
And you've hit a nice point, so I will jump in because that was kind of a circle back to it. And I think, Colin, with your point, that's a kind of an apprehension, or at least a forecast that we had considered, is that, again, with the flexibility or desire, they could be within their development, the freedom to develop in the way they wish. The real burden is in the retrofit of the infrastructure of the parking lot. They're tearing up asphalt. It's not in the chargers, it's what the cost would be to install that. So this is, again, the minimum threshold, because we did consider installations on the full metric. But again, the onerous nature of those requirements, that would certainly be one that if this were under some significant pressure, we would assume those would be the first things to cut back down on. But again, it becomes when the development itself, we would require, say in this instance, multi-household development to have a number of installed chargers. We would see the pressure of, we have leased out and not a single one of our tenants has an EV, yet we've spent all this money. That's going to be a critique, looking for rebates. They're going to come back to see, so why did you make us do this? Again, we understand the horizon of tenancies and changing and everything else, but this puts it in a place of when the tenants themselves can elect, say, we're proposing to management, these collection of people, we want to install whatever that private agreement could be. It leaves it out of the city's purview of how that's to be organized. So whether it's by ownership and there's HOAs, or whether it's by tenancies and there's a management representation there, we felt this is, again, the minimum bar to really make some effective change. And to the point you've made twice, I think in this is, well, if they're putting it on the ground, why won't they just install it? Hopefully, exactly. Hopefully, not only will they run the conduit, they'll also run it and probably electively upgrade to all EV ready, if not go for full installation, because of the amenity aspect of it. And this is where I think, talking to the architects, they don't see this again as a major burden, and that many developments are moving in this direction already. So we're just creating, again, this minimum threshold of a developer that is staunchly opposed to this. Is really hard to argue against what it is that we're saying. If we move to an installation of chargers, a little bit easier to oppose in a way that we are being onerous with our development standards. Again, this is a tool that I think, from the planning commission staff's perspective, we want to provide you with a tool to balance what the policies are. So if the council feels, I think we're willing to push on that, we can certainly amend these these elements. We're just recommending what we think is the most balanced standard set. Does that, and that was kind of the second piece of that question. Is that,
Yeah, I mean, I'm even like, I'm interested in exploring that further.
Mhm.
Kind of taking a more detailed approach. Because I think the two housing typologies like need different things. Like I like the conduit approach for or for like, you know, when I think about Mulberry, like if all of you had conduit, then it's on you as an owner to decide to like tie in, you know, of your own accord. Versus like I don't respectfully, it's hard for me to imagine like a tenant saying to property management, like, give us more charges. We know you have conduit. They're gonna say like, all right, we're increasing your rent.
I'd like to make a suggestion that we go ahead and consider this motion, and if you wanted to include going back to the planning commission to go back further, I think this is something that we should probably consider now and then recommend for the planning commission to look at it deeper as Caitlin's recommending.
Yeah, I got kind of question, does this only work on like multifamily rental things, you know, because I'm wondering like, how it works when, residents have separate meters, you know, or whatnot, you know, who.
Yep. And yeah, thanks. Sorry, I'll take that one too. In again, from a land use perspective, and I think where Joanna and I are here is from the procedural and framing perspective. So when we're talking about components of that, adjusting the triggering mechanisms or components, that's easy. Framing is really what I wanted to ensure. And Alexi's content is really the research base of what are we bringing from these other policies. But to that point, multi-household is a land use and development approach. And then ownerships are an application that can be applied after the fact or even removed, not terribly often. So when we were thinking about this, a 8-unit townhome, that's still a multi-household project. So they would have to have these capable components, even though, and this was a consideration, do we remove those? Because those are really, you usually have higher end buyers, more economic ability to do that or customize those units. It's when we're talking apartment projects, but we can't distinguish between those. The planning commission, seen a number of apartment projects converted to condominiums a year and a half, not even into construction. So keeping it at a base of multi-housing units, 3 or more, again, removing it from that, what is truly just, you have full control is single household, 2 household. That is where I think, I'm not sure I'm getting to the root of your question.
I was wondering who's paying for it. You know, like, you pull into an apartment complex, you know, say like even like Mulberry Lane or something, you know, like, and you have a couple units that have EV parking, you know, then is it
if it's an ownership division, PUD, or a number of private owners within a multi-house group, it would be the HOA considers that. They vote on it, they decide how it's maintenance, paid, all those things. In an apartment projects, which are kind of who we're trying to target, those tenants that have the least control over the parking. This is again, this most approachable threshold, which I think Caitlin's saying, can we go further? Of course we could, but this is the minimum threshold we think would be effective.
So
where the public can.
So the owner of the apartment complex could also come up with a plan where you could have that slot assigned to you and you could pay extra money per month for that.
Or that spot could be, you pay for the electricity that comes out of that plug.
Yeah.
It could be set up that way. It could also be set up where it's like some units have a jet tub or a corner or whatever, and this one has a charging option.
It becomes an amenity aspect. So again, in the market rate. So however that may privately work out, I think us interfering with those private metrics, we could do. It does begin to be developers that don't want to do this. They'll begin to critique that.
My second question is going back to the timeline that you showed. It said that you had contractor feedback. How was the contractor feedback?
Again, no official testimony. We requested during the public hearing official testimonies. Essentially, we said, hey, will you targeted individuals that have multiple projects, multiple scales. The contractor feedback was minimum and non-existent. So again, we reached out to a number of people, only a few people reached back, and in this very kind of limited capacity. So contractors, but didn't get really anything.
Okay, real estate agents. Nothing.
Nothing, no, I think it was the architects and electricians that had the most to contribute.
Okay.
Yeah, reached out to two real estate companies, no feedback.
Well, I imagine one of the architects is also a developer.
And that's, yeah, when we're creating the stakeholder list, we all in this community wear a lot of hats. So
Mhm.
not to leave anybody out in the dark, it was a public hearing for everyone, of course, but there were a few people that obviously meet that bill for a
Mhm.
number of reasons. So felt it was representative of not only construction, development, planning, the full process. We felt the comments and who it was contributed by did cover a lot of that.
Okay.
Okay, I have another big elephant related to this, which is parking code generally. I feel like we've kind of tiptoed around like looking at and not even that residential, but commercial, but I think there is so much potential for this to tie into commercial as well, and wondering like if there's opportunity to tie this into the way that the city looks at parking code amendments. I think this is a great incentive offset for parking reductions. I don't know if you've looked at that incentive before, but especially for like fast chargers. If and as we're looking at active transportation and like larger transitions to transportation infrastructure, more EV, does it make sense to tie this to parking reductions? That was like another big question for me.
We did talk about, do you want to take that one?
I can cover some of it, and then I think Corey will take the rest. When we started with this, we did look at what other cities were doing, like Boise or other communities that had this built into a green building program or other things. What we were seeing was that a lot of the incentives they were offering were bigger than we felt like we could offer in Moab, because we need something so much that those incentives are more appropriate for a bigger ask than doing something that isn't, it's worth maybe a few hundred, few $1,000s. And the kinds of things that we would want to save those incentives for were larger.
To additionally complement to fast chargers, those types of elements, we did consider that both in an incentive perspective and also just as part of the requirement spectrum. And again, with fast charging, when we're talking residential, most of these residents are typically going to be in a workforce situation away from the residents charging overnight. So fast charging really makes sense in a public or commercial capacity, not so much in residential, because you're going to be parked there for 12 hours or more. Taking up the one fast charger that maybe there's a collection of people that you're going out, kind of like a water share, and moving your irrigation around at 2 a.m. to they got to come in, they get their fast charge at 2 a.m. type of thing. So it's one of those, again, where we began to move back, and that either a project could elect on their own to organize how they feel it suited best. And we worked that in, that there were these higher level improvements counted towards that, or even in double fashion, towards this requirement minimum. And then I've lost my second on where we were going with that.
Parking reductions, commercial.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So just jumping in on parking, I think one of the things Corey and his team are going to be looking at is parking in the zone change, or the code update. And I think if I heard you right, you were mentioning we need to be thinking about charging when we're looking at parking standards and all of that kind of stuff at the same time. I think it needs to be part of the discussion always, because our society is going to be changing from going to the Maverick to fill up your gas to just passively charging your car while you're doing something else, which means there'll have to be dispersed charging throughout the city. So we want to definitely consider that in our parking updates as well.
Okay, can we, I ask for a motion at this point? And I think the motion is gonna have to come off the agenda. I didn't see one in the agenda summary. Unless I missed it.
I motioned to send this ordinance back to planning commission for further consideration of differences between owner and renter and like ways that we can further incentivize installation over conduit or yeah, I would like to send it back to planning commission. I motion to send ordinance number 2025-13 back to planning commission for additional consideration.
Motion by Caitlin to send this back to planning commission for further discussion of
further incentivization of installed over conduit, especially as it relates to rental projects versus ownership projects, what that looks like in code, and consideration of how this ties into, well, that's my main thing. I'd leave it
All
at
right.
that.
motion by Caitlin. Do I have a second? Motion dies due to a lack of a
Sick.
second. All
I
right.
love that for myself.
All right, do I have another motion?
I can make a motion to adopt Moab City Ordinance number 2025-13 without modification.
Motion by Colin, second
I'll second that.
by Jason. Further brief discussion, Colin.
None.
Jason.
No.
Caitlin?
I do not personally feel prepared to to vote on this tonight. I personally think I really support the idea, and there are things that I would like to see change, so.
Tony? All right, I'll call for the question. I'm gonna go ahead and do roll call. Caitlin?
Nay.
Colin?
Aye.
Tawny?
Aye.
Jason?
Aye.
Motion passes 3-1 with Caitlin in opposition. All right, ready to go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
You guys cannot go anywhere, Corey and Johanna.
Thank you so much, Alexi.
But this should be quick, I hope. This is general business item 5.4, and I appreciate all the conversation. I know that's a big ask for our developers, but I think it's an important one for the future of Moab. This is the direction we're going, and I think it's important to move forward. I also agree with Caitlin, let's look at it a little deeper. So, and you guys can take care of that. Okay, general business 5.4, consideration of adoption of Moab ordinance 2025-14, an ordinance approving the zoning map amendment for parcel located at approximately 610 Cermak, Moab, Utah, parcel number 010036-0040 from R3 multi-household residential and RA1 residential to C3 central commercial zone and RA1 residential or agriculture. And just so you know, this is just amending the map and kind of cleaning everything up. You guys have already approved all this. This is not a complicated thing. It's just making sure that the map represents what we already, action we already take. Am I correct on that?
Exactly. We're just curing a procedural deficiency by completing the rezoning that was outlined in the pre-annexation for the other Cermak properties. This was meant to be done currently with the annexation process, but we're doing it now.
That's okay. That's great.
Thank you.
Yep. So unless you guys have any questions, I'll ask for a motion on this one as well.
I can make a motion.
Okay.
I move the city of Moab City Council adopt Moab ordinance number 25-14 to amend the zoning map for the parcel located approximately 610. Okay, it's Cermak. It's not in this motion. It just says 610 Moab. So it's 610 Cermak Street Road.
Just Cermak.
Cermak, okay. Moab, Utah 84532. Parcel number 01-0036-0040. Adjusting the current boundary and zones from R3 multi-household residential and RA1 residential agricultural to C3 central commercial zone and RA1 residential agricultural.
Thank you, Tawny. That was a mouthful. Do we have a second?
No second.
All right, motion by Tawny, second by Caitlin. Any discussion, Tawny?
No.
Caitlin?
No.
Colin or Jason?
No.
Okay, I'll call for the motion. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Okay. All right, moving on. Michael, city manager updates.
Okay. Well, I think tonight was a good night to showcase a lot of the really good work that's coming out of community development and our strategic initiatives as well. I think these are a couple of really good things that we talked about tonight. So thank you, everybody. And some really good staff too.
That's
Yep.
great.
Yeah. So, on other stuff. So I wanted to bring up a couple things, bulb outs on Main Street. You may have seen them go in. Not everyone's going to like them. I'll just say that. But let me just put it this way. It's a trial and we need to see if we can live with them, because if we can't live with these, we're not going to be able to live with the expanded sidewalks and the bulb outs. That would be the permanent improvement. We are going to put some signage out on the corners for people to understand what's going on, that it's temporary, what it might look like when it's finished, and what kind of benefits we could see come from installations like this. And so we're looking, we're working on that right now. They got installed way quicker than we thought they were going to. They started a couple days early and finished them very, very quickly. So they're
Because they knew we were gonna go, those are ugly.
yeah.
What's that?
Because we knew we were gonna go, those were ugly.
Yeah.
But it was just like, get in and get out of town.
So they are the same height as what the curb would end up being with bulb outs and things like that. There are some challenges, but anyways, they're there. Will give us some good feedback on what works and what doesn't.
And how long do we anticipate them to be there?
I believe the trial period is supposed to be about 3 months. And the idea that we talked about today internally was, if it works, and this is something we're going to go forward with, can we get UDOT to install the real deal with landscaping and other accoutrements that are nice and make them look better before next spring? I don't know if that's possible. But that's what we talked about today. Now that would only be 2 intersections. You know, we couldn't get all of the intersections done by spring, I'm sure. But if this works out well, yeah, we'll be working on that, and I'll keep you updated on timelines. I can't promise anything, but that's what our intent is that we push this so that we don't have a big lag in between the trial and when the actual permanent solution gets put in there.
So after 3 months, they'll remove them?
I think it's up to us if they remove them or not.
So, and Michael, with the signage, and you touched on both these, but yeah, could the signage please have a rendering of what these could actually look like?
Yeah.
But then also, you said benefits, like the function of bulb outs is so important, of decreasing the length of space that a pedestrian has to cross, getting them out visible to traffic, beyond parked cars, like all of that, if that could be included, because I think that, what I hear over and over with dispersed parking and the bump outs that went in with them that I absolutely love, is just not understanding the true function of them.
Yeah. And that's really, and it is really to address the alarm of what the heck is going on here? What are these things doing here? So we're going to get those up as quickly as possible. UDOT did offer to help out a little bit, but I think we're going to try and make sure they get up quickly. Probably do most of it in house.
It would be great though to show what the intent is.
Yes.
What it to look like
Please.
afterwards.
Yeah.
No, I couldn't figure out what it's supposed to be.
Well, and I
texted Jason this the moment I saw it.
That's the first thing I said when I came in. I was like, what? They're not done, are they?
Yeah, well done.
We're gonna be hearing about
Done
that.
is subjective or is relevant. Anyways, so yes, that is part of the plan. And I did get that suggestion from a citizen today who owns a business downtown, and I thought it was a great suggestion.
Yeah.
Suggested go take a picture in Sedona of a bump out and show people what it's supposed to look like. So I'm on my way to Sedona tomorrow. So,
We
So-
have beautiful ones in our community already.
Yeah.
That are functioning very well.
There's-
Yeah.
yeah, darn it. Um,
So much for Sedona.
Yeah.
But I'll go with
Nice
you.
try.
yeah. No, we do. We actually do here. You're absolutely right. In fact, there are some on Center and Main.
Absolutely.
There's some really good ones, actually. 100 East Timeline, I wanted to just give you an update. That's probably on everybody's mind, but paving should be taking place by the third week of September. They want to start the second week, but it's probably more likely it's the third week. We want them to go as fast as possible, believe me. So if we can get it the second, that would be great, but I didn't want to overpromise. I think even saying the third week, I hope I'm not overpromising on that, but that's the plan, is to get that paving in by the end of October or September.
Great.
So pool hours at the MRAC, they have changed or are changing. There are some new outdoor lap swim hours. Please check with the MRAC on what those are. It's just lap swim that's going to be open and outside. And we're cutting back on hours for all of the other types of swim that's happening outside, just because there's several reasons. One of them is a lot of our lifeguards are back in school now. Another reason is a lot of the people who were using the pool during the day are back in school and have other things going on as well. So our employee numbers have gone down, and so have our patron numbers. So this happens every year. So. And that's all I was going to update you on today.
Do you want to mention the sidewalk?
Oh, the sidewalk, the downtown sidewalk bid is out. It has been out for a couple of weeks now. If you recall, when we put out the bid previously, this was a bid where we were trying to get as much sidewalk done as possible. We're looking at a few $100,000 bid and several $100,000 bid, I should say. And we didn't get any bids on it at all. So we went back and retooled it. We changed some of the timelines. We allowed for bidders to be able to come in and do the job in two distinct timeframes. So they didn't have to start and finish it all in the same time frame. So we're hoping that we'll get some more, just one would be more, but any bids on this one. And we did take into account why people did not bid and considering what to change when we put it out to bid. So we did talk to the people who were interested and then chose not to bid. So it is out. Looking forward to hearing that we got 2 or 3 bids on that, so we can make a good decision and get that project going.
When does the bid process close?
That's a good question. I don't have the exact date. I know someone who knows it though. Summer knows. She's giving me the signal. It's
Okay, so anything else?
no. You want to just jump in when you find it?
Yep. So I'll start with you, Jason, for city council reports.
Okay, starting with me, on July 30th, I attended the housing forum. It was put on. It was excellent. It was very good. And I thought that Caitlin, you did a great job putting that on. Thank you for doing that. With your other job, and stuff. I thought that Corey did an amazing job. Corey just had so much data and so much knowledge, and is such an asset to the city and what he does. It was absolutely amazing. So I wish he was here because he deserves huge kudos for what he's doing.
I'll tell him.
And then August 11th, I attended an airport board meeting. Things are still going good at the airport. We do have the new manager who's I think in the process of just trying to figure out like everything that's on his plate and what his job entails. And I'm very optimistic about the new airport manager. I think he brings a lot of really good things to the table. He's working on some projects out there, such as how to fund some paving projects out there that could help the airport expand, and there's some other things, there's some other projects out there, concerns with, they want to expand, but they need to do some things like moving the well, that's currently out there. And then So, anyway, so that was, they got a lot going on at the airport. August 12th, I attended, a Moab area travel council meeting. And, and and the travel council, I think is on a good foot, and they're doing some great things. Right now, they do not have a director. So, right now it's Allie and Mick. I don't know if you guys know that they're awesome. They're doing a really good job of keeping things going over there and moving things forward without a current director. They are in this process of trying to find a director. They're using an outside agency to try to find a director and bring him in, which I also think is a great thing, because they're the county has done something. They've hired a really good advertising agency, Madden Advertising, which is very well known, throughout the advertising world. They brought in a PR firm, and they're bringing in forget the word I'm looking for, another company who an identity, kind of will
Branding company.
yeah, a
Are we gonna
branding
be-
company.
Is the city gonna be a part of that rebranding process?
I think, yeah,
You will be, because you're on the board.
but I think that yes, for sure, and they're gonna bring this company called Camp 4 is one of the companies, and they're gonna be spending a lot of time here. So I think that, yeah, they will be working with the city to do that. I'll
good.
make sure that we're part of that. And then on August 13th, I attended a Moab Chamber meeting, and the chamber is also doing some really good things, and is planning some things. I'm kind of helping work with them for the holiday winter wonderland event and stuff. I talked to Michael about that. I had a meeting with Michael about it the next day. And then on I think it's September 3rd, we're having a meeting with Kelly McInerney and myself, the chamber, and there's like a little chamber board, and as well as Levi, and going over kind of what the winter festival is going to look like, and how everybody, working together, trying to get everybody on the same page, and sharing notes and ideas about how to make it big. But I think there's a real plan to make it bigger and better than it's ever been before. So
We do have new Christmas lights.
Well, I think that's one of the things they're gonna talk about too.
that's one thing we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
And so, and also working with our branding agency, to see how they can promote that and stuff. They have some really good ideas to how to promote it across the country. So, August 14th, Michael and I had a short meeting with Senator Mike Lee's chief of staff here in town, and we were able to sit down with him and kind of discuss kind of our Moab needs. We went over everything from UMTRA to trying to get funding for the bridges, and even some long-term ideas for flooding remediation, and keeping that on the forefront. We also talked about the housing bill, and how we still kind of felt that there was a need, and there's an opportunity for, to use some of that housing, federal lands, for housing in this area that borders these areas, that the BLM has. It's in the valley, like out in Spanish Valley and stuff, the borders. I thought it was a really good meeting, and we covered a lot of stuff. August 19th, I had a Grand County EMS board meeting. I sent you guys all the slideshow. You guys, because there's a lot of stuff in there, a lot of really good information. I thought it would be pretty hard to go over it here and stuff, so I just kind of sent you guys that information. They are working with the fire department and the healthcare special service district on the ballot initiative. We just started today. That's called Proposition 13, and that it has a name from the state, and so everybody's gonna kind of start working on kind of getting that pushed through.
Lucky number
Put 'em
there,
up.
13.
And then on August 21st, the mayor and I attended the chamber social at the Hoodoo, and the chamber's kind of switched it up a little bit, and they're doing these afternoon socials or evening socials that go from like 5 to 7, you know, or something. And they're a lot of fun. I would highly, you know, encourage you guys all, I can let you guys know. Joy lets me know, the mayor lets me know when they are, even though I'm on the board, 'cause I forget. But they turned out really good. There's a really good turnout, and the business community is very active right now and stuff with the chamber, and I think that there's some really good things. That is it. That's all I have.
And just also, I was just gonna say, maybe you were gonna say the same thing, that the city is now a member of the
Member,
chamber.
yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, so, and anyway, I just wanted to let everybody know, I can't believe we haven't been, but we are now.
The bid for the sidewalks closes in 2 days on Thursday.
Oh, good. So cross our fingers, if we get some. Okay. Thanks, Jason. Tawny.
Let's see. I attended the Canyonlands Healthcare Special Service District. We did discuss the wording on the or the proposition on the ballot and submitted some changes to the county, which they approved. It didn't feel like to the healthcare district that it was very accurate. But they did approve the changes. And we will be needing a couple of more board members at the end of this year. I believe Joette said she was willing to do it again, but we do have one other seat open that we need to fill. And we've been told that nobody understands what we do. It's very complex. And if you've dealt with the medical world or billing or financing, you understand that it is very complex. And it takes a while to get your feet under you and understand. Well, first of all, you have to be on there about 4 years before you get all the acronyms. But it just takes a while to get your feet under you and understand what's being done. But we do have some good candidates. I wasn't able to attend the HASU meeting last week, but we have lost 2 board members on the HASU board, but we do have 2 good candidates. And I honestly don't know if those names have been made public or not, so I won't say who they are right now. But I think they were going to try and get them to the county commission at their next meeting. And then last Thursday, I attended a meeting with the mayor and Michael and Danny and Lexi regarding it was the working group for the benefits survey, and that's all that one was, wasn't it? Yeah. Okay. And that was a good meeting. So that's all I had.
Thanks, Tawny. Colin?
In July, I attended the housing panel, and in my notes, I have Caitlin and Corey to be mentioned, just like Jason. Caitlin did an amazing job of orchestrating it, and I got so much feedback afterwards about what an amazing asset Corey is to the city. So yeah, Michael, please pass that along. And then in August, I had a trail mix meeting on the 12th, and the Mud Springs Trail System project Southtown is moving along well. That's going to be a huge economic driver for the community because it's going to be the first purpose-built adaptive trail system and e-bike friendly trail system. Not the first, but also a NICA, so the National Intergalactic Cycling Association. So we're going to see some major events out there, which are going to be, you know, a nice bump to the city sales and use taxes. On the 14th, I attended the Utah Bike Summit. I was able to present with Katie Murphy from the county and Brian Tonetti from Alta, who is the consulting agency who's working on the non-motorized travel management plan for us. Our presentation was using in gateway communities active transportation infrastructure to ease tension between tourists and residents. It's very well received. One of the the biggest questions we got was how do you fund these things? How do you do that? And So that's all the challenge all communities are having, whether it's Park City, St. George, Moab, anywhere in the state. But a really great conference. On the 20th, I had a solid waste meeting. Do want you to know that there is a rate increase happening soon. This is something that the council voted on last year. It's an increase of $2 to $28 from $26. If you live in the county, you pay $32. There's a reduction in the cost of recycling for the single stream. It's going down $2. We're actually, the solid waste district has seen a decline in numbers for the single stream, probably related to removing glass from that single stream recycling. But glass can still be taken up to the recycling center up the hill. On the 24th, I attended, which I guess was just this Sunday, was a solid waste employee appreciation party at Swanee, which was really well attended and a nice function. And then on the 25th, I attended a non-motorized travel management plan tech meeting, and Caitlin, I know you responded, but for the survey that's been out in circulation, we've gotten about 440 responses, which is wonderful, and definitely surpassed our expectations. On 9/4 at the Grand Center is going to be an open house to present all of the recommendations from Alta to the community and also receive feedback on those. And so when we get closer to that, I'll send out a reminder because it'd be great to see all of you there. That's it for me.
Thank you. Caitlin.
Okay, yeah, on the 30th, Jason and I also, and Michael also went on the Zeus set tour.
Yeah.
Loved that. Pioneer Day. That was like already picked up. So yeah, that was a really fun start to the day, and then Housing Town Hall for coming. I agree, Corey definitely was like highlight of the show. Kicked it off really well. I think he just demonstrated a lot of professionalism and like knowledge on behalf of the city, which has started conversations with the task force about how we continue to dive into figuring out what our pipeline looks like. I think even for me, Corey raised this really interesting idea of like project banking. I think we're all familiar with land banking, but in this pipeline, like figuring out how and why certain developers are holding on to entitlements for a really long time. I think it's causing a lot of chaos and uncertainty in our market. So yeah, I thought that was really interesting. On the 4th, I attended a community renewable energy agency meeting. They are still going through testimony, but they received bids back for potential project partners. They're moving forward on analyzing those. I think they got like 14 bids, which was more than they were expecting. And so they're now in process to select up to 6 bids to move forward on that. So still moving forward, still slower than anyone wants it to be. On the 7th, we had a housing task force meeting and kind of recapped the stuff that had been going on over the last couple of months, including the town hall. The housing survey received 435 responses. This is the second year they got over 500 last year. But between that and kind of conversations about, we're having a lot of conversations about collecting and presenting data. So talked a lot about that. Also talked about this town hall and wanting to continue to do events. But we had set out this year wanting to do quarterly events. Probably more likely it'll be 2 bigger events in a year, and then trying to do more small events like tabling and just being more present and like kind of ongoing providing housing information. And then I guess this is like a semi-conflict of interest, but I think it's important, but disclosing anyway. Hasu in particular is really pushing for Confluence Cottages is a project at Arroyo Crossing, of which my other job I'm tied to. So disclosing that, but it is moderate income, 1 or 2 bedroom. People can start moving. I think they're gonna start moving people in next month. They're honestly having a really hard time leasing up. So if you are looking for a 1 or 2 bedroom, kind of like more market rate, like detached place, please reach out to Hasu. On the weekends surrounding that, went to a couple of the free concert series, always one of my favorite parts of the summer. On the 13th, I went to an League of Cities and Towns LPC Housing Advisory Group. Some of this was also talked about at LPC on Monday, but focusing on potential changes to the moderate income housing plan requirements. Moab is not subject to those, but I think it's something that would be good for us to watch because the state is also looking at potential funding sources, one of which would be for infrastructure support. And in order to access that funding, we would have to be in compliance with the MIHP. So that's interesting. We also talked about expiration notices for developer entitlements, also kind of tied into this like project banking concept. Don't know exactly where that's going to go. And then I think the league is talking a lot, pretty consistently, about detached ADU regulations. I have seen them reference Moab's codes before. I think that we are much further ahead in the curve than the rest of the state, but always interesting to watch the league try and talk about state versus local control when it comes to stuff like that. On the 13th, I don't normally talk about LHC, but especially since Luke has been out, actually took notes to share on his behalf for local homeless council. A couple of things wanted to mention. The county is talking about using the library for a warming center and looking at extended hours or other like improvements they need to make, especially as they're heading into their budget season. Kind of how to provide more, I guess, support and resources and information spaces for homeless individuals during the winter months. The Free Health Clinic is also starting to do laundry service for folks who are unhoused. They've been doing support for shower services, laundry service as well, and they will be running a dentist clinic with the University of Utah from September 8th to the 12th. So encourage people to reach out if either of those are interest. On the 19th, the county commission, and I've mentioned this to a couple of you, the county commission voted to support some funding towards the task force, $10,000 for kind of general task force support, website data analysis, events, that kind of thing, and to also support housing pipeline analysis. I think the expectation is for the city to match that, and so that's a conversation I would like to have for a future agenda item. I think in terms of the housing pipeline, our match for that would look a little different because our staff has already done a lot related to that. And then last week, 21st, 22nd, I went to a Colorado Association of Ski Towns meeting in Estes Park. They had presentations on childcare, on destination management and timed entry, tie into transit related to Rocky Mountain National Park. Very interesting to hear how that's going compared to how conversations related to timed entry and transit are happening here. And then there were presentations on short-term rentals in Telluride, just some really interesting things that I don't even know if we can do in the state of Utah, but it seems like there are several cities in Colorado that are going less of like an assured housing approach and more of like an ongoing, like more like business license fee, and are starting to transition away from caps on total amount that are allowed, and instead are like kind of loosening that and doing more of like a fee basis to take advantage of kind of like how short-term rentals tie into communities. And then another final thing I thought was really interesting. Well, I can go back, lots of stuff about deed restrictions, lots of conversation about housing. And then finally yesterday went to an LPC meeting, just generals, talked again about similar stuff with the state housing plan, DEQ, talked about, potential increase to drinking water fees. We're having a public hearing in September. Basically, their federal funding got cut by like 40%. 64. Yeah. And so
$14,000 a year for us.
For that fee.
Sorry, it's about
Really?
$14,000 per year that
fee.
the city will
Wow.
be paying.
Okay, that's good to know. Yeah, so there's that. And then other interesting conversation about annexations,
Are
preliminary.
you gonna go to that tomorrow? Are you gonna go to that at 9 o'clock?
Mhm.
Oh, good, good. That's great, because we were talking about that and I was hoping you would go.
Yes,
That should be interesting.
it will be very interesting. Talking about annexation. That's all for me.
Great, a lot. Everybody's been
Lot.
working hard.
Yeah.
I've been traveling. So I was gone for most of July and August, but I still was able to work during that time. My regular meetings with staff and with Michael. I did attend the healthcare district, as Tawny mentioned, and I also spent a lot of time with Mel and Dan on making sure that the language on the ballot was correct information. We really felt pretty strongly that you needed to make sure that if we're putting an initiative on the ballot to ask for more taxes, that you get the language correct on the ballot. And so that happened, which was really good. Jason mentioned the chamber business meetups. Those are also very informative. I encourage you guys all to go to those when they come up. It's a great way to meet our business owners and give them our support. Met yesterday with Tawny and Danny, Michael and Alexi on the benefit package, looked at the employee benefit survey that was done, and also with the other comparison to other communities. And when we all meet in the next, we're going to be meeting in the next couple of weeks, I'll get more specifics with that. Very interesting information.
Except our meeting was Thursday, not yesterday.
No, I'm so, my days are completely, I don't know.
I didn't catch it.
My days are, I
Yeah.
know, felt like it was
Sorry.
yesterday.
Yeah.
Thanks, Tony. Well, I'm
I
seriously,
didn't want there
I've
to be
been like
confusion between what I said and what you said.
traveling all around the United States, you lose sense of time. And so also LPC on Monday. That was yesterday. That was really interesting. I don't need to go over what Caitlin's already talked about. Also met with the lobbyists Tim Stewart and Ryan Levitt yesterday, and there is some concern about the appropriations bill coming up. You know, everybody's out now in Congress in August. There is a possibility there's going to be a government shutdown in the end of September into October. We did mention to them that's going to be very critical for us because that's our biggest season. If they shut down the government, is the state going to step in to keep our parks open? He was going to follow up with Cody on that and reach out. He's meeting with Casey Snyder and who's also leadership at the legislature, and get some more information about that. So if there is a shutdown, hopefully it won't be long, and hopefully our state will step up and keep our parks open for us. And that's it. We do need an executive session, but before we go into executive session, I want to give a shout out to Luke and Kaya. We miss you. I don't know if Luke is watching, but we're thinking of you guys and looking forward to having you back in the community soon with little Arthur.
Here.
Yep. So anyway, with that, need a motion to go into closed section to discuss reasonable, imminent, or pending litigation. Do I have a motion? Jason?
I'll make a motion to go into closed session to talk about, what is it?
Reasonably
Reasonable,
imminent or pending litigation.
reasonable, imminent, or pending litigation.
Seconded by Colin. All right, any discussion? Well, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, we're in closed session.
Okay.
Thank you.